Today I'm interviewing a very special guest of mine named Lisa Arends. She's the author of Lessons from the End of a Marriage, and she's been called a inspirational coach. I call her a coach of hope. As you get to know her, you're going to hear her story, and I have to tell you, it's absolutely riveting to hear her story. She's someone who is really an expert on divorce. She is now remarried, so we talk about her first marriage ending and the betrayal and a boatload of other things that she had to process, as well as what it was like to divorce and then what it was like to remarry. You're going to love to hear from Lisa. And if you are approaching divorce, if you're even considering divorce, maybe you've already been divorced and you're just really trying to regain a sense of hope and courage and just perspective, I just promise you, Lisa's going to be a breath of fresh air. I thank you for joining me today. I'm really thankful for Lisa taking the time to just share her heart with us today.
My guest today is Lisa Arends. She is an author. She's a wellness coach. She's a math teacher. She's been referred to by many as a coach of inspiration. She is the author of two books. One is Lessons from the End of a Marriage, which is phenomenal. Another one is Life at the Intersection of Yesterday and Tomorrow. Lisa, I can't thank you enough for coming in today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We were going to do this months ago. I had to cancel. We had a time issue yesterday. I was just elated that you were willing to come back in. You have an immense following on Twitter. I have so many people that watch my videos and on my Twitter account that love you. I just tweeted a little simple tweet today that said, hey, the brilliant and kind Lisa Arends is coming in, and people were losing their minds. So this is awesome.
Well, thank you.
So for my audience, you are someone who's been through infidelity, ended up in that marriage, ending in divorce. I have so many people who watch my stuff whose marriage did not make it. And so I'm just overjoyed to have someone come in that can really hone in on divorce and really even kind of help those that are married understand that divorce is not just a cure-all, fix it, oh, everything's great now. So for my audience, would you take a few minutes and kind of share a little bit about your story, what you've been through, and we'll kind of be off and running.
Sure. So it is quite a story. So I'm going to give you the very brief version of it. So all of this happened about 11 years ago. So just so those of you watching know, I'm a ways out now. So I was with my ex-husband from the time we were 16 and thought we had a great marriage. We had really no fights, no issues, nothing that I was aware of. And after 16 years together, one day I got a text out of the blue when I was out of town. And in the text, he said, I'm sorry to be such a coward leaving you this way, but I'm leaving you and leaving the state. And I never spoke with him again. He refused any contact. And so that was all I had. And sorry, even just like, it still can take me back there sometimes.
Listen, this is the exact stuff that is so important, is authenticity. Yeah. I have people from all over the world that watch my stuff. And the number one thing that I'm told about is how they love that I don't give any BS. It's authentic and straight. So please.
It's what it is.
Let it fly.
It is. And so as you can imagine, I had so many questions. That's really what hit me at first. And so I got home and started, all of his stuff was cleared out of the house and he had taken all the files and his computer and everything. And so it took me a while to really figure out what was going on. He had changed all the passwords on the accounts, like bank accounts and everything. And finally figured out that not only was there infidelity and signs of more than one woman, but he had actually gotten married, committed bigamy. There was also financial infidelity. He had taken out so many credit cards and loans without my knowledge, maxed them all out. And I actually had negative $2 to my name at that point. And so for me, the infidelity is all tied up with abandonment. Like it was all kind of one big package. And the financial infidelity as well. It's hard for me personally to sort of sort like what's one thing and what's the other.
Right.
But I remember at the beginning, I was so angry because he stole my voice. You know, by leaving the way that he did, I never had the chance to speak with him, to yell at him,
Right.
you know, to do any of those things. And he also took away any choice that I had, not only in the way that he ended the marriage, but by never telling me that he was scared, by never telling me that he was unhappy, by never confiding in me all of those things that were going on, and instead pretending that everything was fine. I never had any knowledge to act on, and I never had any say in any of it.
I think it's safe to say, like, what almost every betrayed spouse feels, not all of them, but I'd probably say 80%, you felt blindsided, right?
Oh, completely. I mean, literally the hours before I got that text, we were on the phone, love you, miss you. We were planning a trip to the coast together that weekend, you know, and then the whole time, I mean, he had already left the house. He was
crazy.
with his other wife, you know, I mean, so it was, and, you know, so then it's the blindsided, but then it's also that mental tape that goes through as you're looking past of what you thought was real and then what really was going on,
Right.
you know, and trying to make sense of those two things.
And as you were faced with, you know, for you, it was different, right? You were in the middle of this relationship, so you're blindsided. And then overnight, to me, you have to then face divorce, which one of my guests just came on and talked. He made a description. He said, you know, divorce is like an amputation. You're still alive, but there's a loss of something that was part of your life since for decades. And so you are rushed into the confrontation with divorce. And so many betrayed spouses who, some of them do want a divorce. Some of them feel like, hey, that's my only option, and they must. And some of them feel like, man, I have no other choice. Talk a little bit about just, I mean, the word divorce sends shivers down people's back. I mean, share a little bit about what it was like venturing in and just having to live as a divorcee, right? There's such a connotation. There's such the look, all of that.
All of it. I never, ever thought I would be divorced. Never. You know, I was always like, so sure, this won't happen to me. Came from divorced parents. I'm like, oh, I got this, you know? And I always had that attitude of, we're going to work it out. Well, what I didn't understand is it takes two people to work it out. You know, I kind of look at marriage as like riding a bicycle.
Right.
And, you know, if one wheel is bent, you can work on that for a while. But at some point, if that wheel isn't fixed, or if that wheel is just missing, you have to learn how to ride a unicycle. I mean, that's really your own, you know, your only choice.
Right.
And for me, divorce was one of those. Now I'm actually kind of glad it happened the way it did, because I literally didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't forced into it, I don't know how long it would have taken me to make that decision. And knowing what I know now, you know, kind of seeing the patterns and uncovering some of the evidence, divorce really needed to happen. I mean, where he was not compatible with a healthy marriage. But if he had continued to lie to me, I probably would have, okay, I'll give you a chance. I'll give you a chance. And I would have wanted it to be true. I would have wanted it so badly to have made it work that I think I would have excused things that I shouldn't have. So, but as it was just thrown into it. And there really is a stigma around it, which it's hard. We feel like we failed, you know, and so I had to really reframe it. It's like, no, divorce isn't failure. Failure to me is refusal to learn. And as long as I learn from it, that's a successful marriage. You know, we look at like, you know, think of like dogs. You know, we don't say, you know, oh, Rover was such a good boy. It's a shame he died at 15. He's such a failure. You know, no, we look at that 15 years with that dog and we celebrate those 15 years, even though it had to end. And I think that can be a way that we can look at marriage. It's like, sometimes it is going to end, and it's going to end before we're ready for it to. And it is a loss, and there's grieving and everything that goes in with that. But that doesn't mean that the whole thing was bad. And it doesn't mean that you're a failure. It just means, okay, it's now time to learn from that and then move on to something new.
and I love a couple things there. One is I love reframing, changing the narrative. I love that because I know that unfaithful betrayeds who end up divorcing, they feel like immense failures. There's incredible depression and grief, and you just want to hide. But then I love the fact that, if you don't do your grief work, I think healing becomes very elusive and it becomes very distant. And, whenever we write articles or do videos on grieving, the viewership does not go through the roof. Nobody wants that.
No.
But it's interesting that you said that, because even just in our first few minutes together and you kind of welling up a little bit, we look at each other and we go, yeah, we get it. And, tell me about, that had to be kind of a bottoming out, right? Like you faced a divorce, you hit rock bottom. I mean, maybe your third book is Lessons from Rock Bottom, but I know I could write a book on lessons from rock bottom. But in terms of your rock bottom, give me a few nuggets or diamonds from the rock bottom that you had to kind of walk through.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. So when I received the text, I was at my aunt and uncle's house and my dad was with me. And just a quick aside, but to me, it's so important to look for those hidden gifts. My dad and I didn't have a relationship. This was the first time that I had seen him in years. Oh. And that man held my hand all the way on the plane from Seattle back to Atlanta, didn't leave my side. And so, I lost a husband, but I gained a father.
Wow.
Yeah. But so I received that text and I literally collapsed to the floor, fetal position, just shaking. And my dad just laid down next to me. I just handed him the phone. Before I could even sit up, I said to him, I am going to find a way to make something good come of this. I don't know how, I don't know what, but I'm going to find a way to make good come out of this. And then I forgot about that statement. It just kind of was there because I was in the muck of it. For 9 months, I was dealing with the legal process of, felony bigamy and then the divorce and all of that nonsense. And for those months, I actually made a list, handwritten. I called it my goal post. I put it right above my computer. And it was all my little goals for that first year. And it was everything from learn to cook a gluten-free meal, to make one new friend, to write a book, small goals in a year.
Yeah.
That didn't happen that first year. But I just kept it there of that reminder of, yes, this is an end. It's a big end. It's an end I didn't want. It's an end I didn't see coming. And it's an end that has walloped me. But it's not my end. And, I kept thinking, he has taken so much from me. I refuse to give him the rest of my life.
Wow.
And
awesome.
So it was, and so that anger in the beginning fueled me. It really was. It was I will not let him have this. He cannot have me. And so I just had those goals, and it just was that little bit of okay, right now life sucks.
Yeah.
There's nothing good right now, but it's not always going to be this way. And I can find those little moments and those little things and those gifts, and keep building on those.
Listen, I've got my eyes on my paper because I'm taking notes, because let me tell you, I'm gonna take some of these statements and run with them, because I think it is, my heart froze when you said, and this goes for, we have so many male betrayed spouses as well.
Right.
But my heart froze when you said, he had taken so much from me, I refused to let him take any more. And I think we as survivors of infidelity, whether we stay married or whether we end up divorcing, there has to be that mentality that says, I've let infidelity take so much from me, I'm not going to let it take any more.
And I think because I hate the word victim. I hate it. But when your spouse chooses to be unfaithful, you have no say in that. You are powerless over that choice. And then you are powerless over their reaction to that. Whether they apologize and are doing all the right things or whether they disappear like mine did. We have no control over that at all. And so I think a huge part of healing from infidelity is finding your power, whatever that may be. And part of that is, I will not let this take the rest of my life. I will not let this make me bitter. I will not allow this to keep me from loving and trusting again.
Man, we could talk for hours. This is such just the raw courage, the ferocious will to live and survive inside of you is incredibly inspiring. So I want to honor that. And as we talked about another topic, you know, many people start to kind of go, and you could hear something like this and go, by God, I'm going to divorce that SOB, or I'm going to divorce her. I'm feeling my power. But in reality, you know, one guy said it this way. It's a little bit different than your situation, but he said, you know, divorce is trading one set of problems for another. It's not like, oh, I'll just divorce this guy or this girl and life is just going to be amazing. I am woman or man, hear me roar. It's not like that, right?
No, I wish they could talk to my now husband who's had to deal with all of the like repercussions of this over the years. It's not that way. It really isn't. And, you know, I think there's kind of several things at play. One, initially after divorce, I call it like the honeymoon period after divorce. There kind of is that upswing. And you do kind of feel that freedom, that elation, and things do seem kind of like easy, like, oh, that's just it. But that's not true. I mean, it's kind of that false reality. And then the truth of it is if you ever want to have a relationship again, and when I say relationship, it does not have to be, you know, what we think of as like that, you know, romantic relationship. I mean, if you want to have anybody close to you, period, any of that kind of intimacy, you have to do the work. Because the truth of it is, you don't trust the way that you did before. And you're going to have those triggers. You're going to have those things. And that's your job. You know, my now husband and I have been together for 7 years. And at this point, it's smooth. But there'd be times in the beginning, he would do something, I mean, completely innocent, completely different than my ex. But he would do something and it would trigger me. And it's not right for me to tell him, hey, you can't do that.
Right. Because
it wasn't anything wrong. He just needed to understand at that point, like, whoa, okay, I'm overwhelmed, I'm flooding, but I need to address that. That's my problem, that's not him.
Right.
You know, and I have to learn to trust what are like echoes from my past and what is really something coming up from the present. And all of that is work that you have to do, whether you stay with the person that was unfaithful or if you're in a new relationship.
Because that's the illusion. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
That's the illusion is divorce means the work is over and I'll kind of grieve and then I'm going to be superwoman or super guy. And you've just completely shattered that idea because what I hear you saying, and I want you to speak to this, and I'm a big proponent of this, whether you're going to save your marriage or you're going to end it, you have to do your own work. If you don't do your own work, it doesn't work.
Yeah. If you don't do your own work, it doesn't work. And, you know, what we're all the most afraid of is it happening again. I mean, that's what we all are just petrified of. And I have to speak to, I really believe that if you don't do the work, that's when it's more likely to happen to you again. Because we just kind of reenact those things over and over again.
Okay, hold on. I warned you there was going to be some times when you said something that I went, pump the brakes. Please say that again.
If you don't do the work on whatever trauma you have, that's when you're inviting it back into your life. You know, and there's no guarantees. I mean, you can't say, oh, this is never, ever going to happen to me again.
Exactly.
But what I can say is because I've done the work, I don't have the fear around it that I did before. And in my first marriage, like part of what I've had to take ownership of is my fear. I was so afraid of abandonment because of what happened with my father that anything that even, tiptoed into abandonment, I would overreact like crazy, and not in an angry way, but in like a panic way.
Yeah.
And that's not a healthy way to respond. And when I look back, it's like, oh, I was teaching him it wasn't safe to be honest with me because I was going to respond in that way. And so that was work I had to do on myself. You know, that marriage was gone, but that needed to be fixed, you know, going into the next relationship. And if I still had that fear around abandonment, around infidelity, I'm helping to create an environment where that sort of thing is more likely to happen. And I'm more likely to pick somebody who's going to fall back into those same patterns as well, because I'm just going to be doing what I know and what's comfortable.
And so much greatness within that few minutes. I think one of the things that I dissect out of that is that, we by nature can be control freaks. We want our coffee a certain way. We want our meals a certain way. We want our cars, traffic, and we want our spouse a certain way.
Right.
And I'm sure, and again, my viewers know my story. I'm not divorced. By the mercy and grace of both God and Samantha, we did not divorce, and we've been in recovery 15 some odd years, married 23. But I have to believe that there was a point that you probably hit a wall where you just said, look, I can't control this. All I can control is my own reaction, my own response. And even that becomes uncontrollable when you're traumatized and devastated, like a story like yours. Tell me a little bit about having to relinquish control, if you will.
Oh, yes, that was hard.
I love it. I love when I ask a question and I get that response. I'm like, yes, I asked the right question.
That's one I still struggle with as a school teacher going into next school year with its unknowns, and I am, okay, I can do this. Yeah. I'm actually reflecting back on the post-divorce time when I had no control. I think it's interesting because we never really have control, and we always have lives of uncertainty. And the thing is we fool ourselves that that's not the case. And we can fool ourselves, we're good at that, and we can do it for years on end. And then infidelity sort of shatters all of that. And it makes it very clear what life really is. And you've got to become comfortable with that. And for me, one of the biggest pieces of it was actually kind of getting back into my body. Like when all of this happened, like I totally kind of separated from my body. Like I just had no physical sensations at all. Just this like weird kind of disconnection feeling. And so for me, a big piece of it was doing running, because that kind of got the anger and the energy out and forced me to breathe, doing yoga and doing meditation. And all of those, it was like, okay, I'm, exhausted on mile 10 going up a hill right now, but I can focus on my breath. Yeah. Okay, I'm in incredible discomfort in this yoga pose right now, but I can come back to my breath. My brain is wandering where I don't want it to go. I can come back to my breath. And so I just kept coming back to, okay, I can control this. And it was amazing just by focusing there. It kind of calms you in the midst of all the rest of it.
And I think that's so good because so many betrayeds, male and female, they're looking for something, and it might be alcohol. It might be acting out in a high-risk behavior. It could be, very destructive behavior. I mean, and someone who's been through all of this and talks to people in this category every single day of my life, it would seem, man, I have so much empathy and so much compassion for the war that they fight. Because we all have our own war. The unfaithful has their own war. The betrayed has their own. The divorce war is something that is just, difficult. So let me turn the page a little bit here, because I really want to encourage and help the divorced, because you're remarried. You've been married, I think you said 7 years.
7 years.
I mean, I love so much about what you're saying, because you're above and beyond the BS, right? And the platitudes and all that. I mean, tell me about remarrying. Tell me a little bit about your husband. Tell the viewer some hope that's kind of going, man, will I? Because so many betrayeds, this is the last thing and I'll shut up. So many betrayeds say, man, am I even worthy of being married again? I'm such a train wreck. I'm so broken. Who's going to want me? I'm 40 something. I'm 50 something. No one's ever going to want me again. I mean, let me just tee it up for you and say, Lisa, help them. Give them hope.
First, there's always hope. Let me just start by saying that. And I know how broken you feel. I remember just that shattered, my friends had to help me eat, the first several months. I mean, it was unbelievable that I could ever recover from that. You can. I think a big piece of it though is, when when we're rejected like that and when our partners are unfaithful, we do take it personally and we do see it as something that is wrong with us. And I think one of the first things that you have to do is really depersonalize it. And for me, what was really helpful with that is talking with others, reading other people's stories, and, like listening to like the words that my ex-husband said in the typed letter that he left me compared to what other, spouses have done. And it's the same playbook. And realizing that, it was like, oh, okay. This really had more to do with him than it had to do with me. And so that was kind of that first step. But then I think it's also so important, especially before you start dating again, you have to work on your confidence. You really have to work on your confidence, because if you go back out there feeling broken and defeated, what's going to happen is you're going to pick up people that see that and want that. And that's not who you want, because they're either going to prey upon you or they're going to try to fix you. Oh. And neither one of those are healthy dynamics for the long run.
Okay. Hold on. Again, the betrayed doesn't want to be fixed.
No. Well,
they want to be healed. They want to be healed, but they don't want to be fixed like a math problem.
But there was, like, I remember when I first started dating, there was one guy that was kind of that white knight sort of mentality. And I found myself drawn to him at the very beginning. This was early dating. So I got on Match pretty quickly because I was like, I need to learn how to date. But this was like low pressure.
Yeah.
But I found myself drawn to him because he was kind of that fixer. And at first I was like, oh, please, because right now I'm a hot mess. I would love somebody to help me, especially like the finances and all that. But I mean, it was just a couple dates and I was like, oh no, this is control. I don't like this feeling.
Wow.
But it was really important, I think, for me to have that experience and to recognize, yeah, he can kind of fix some things, but there's a high price to pay for that. And it's not one I'm willing to pay.
I think that's such wonderful, gracious advice, because it just takes into account the pain and the hurt that a betrayed feels and the vulnerability that is going on inside of them. And I talk to so many betrayeds who you would look at them and you would talk to them, beautiful, handsome, intelligent, strong, have the world to offer someone, but they are living in the shadow of their trauma. Yeah. And they have such this horrible opinion about themselves. They can't receive encouragement or positive feedback. They just are shattered, like you said. And so that's where I think, man, doing the work is so key. But doing the work, I think you'll agree, doing the work from the right people, because if you find the right people, you find the right process, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, for my viewers, tell them a little bit about your book. You're highly active on Twitter. You write very frequently. Tell my viewers, how can they find more of your information? Tell them a little bit about your books and help them to know where to find you, because I want them to become friends of yours for sure.
Sure, I love it. So the first book, actually the way that this came about was because the police and attorneys that I had to deal with through all the stuff in the beginning kept saying, this needs to be a book. I've been in law for 20 years. I've been a police officer for 20 years. I've never heard this before.
Wow.
So the first book is really just the story. I mean, it is, this is what happened. It's all the craziness of it. But it also, I called it Lessons from the End of a Marriage, because each chapter is a lesson that I learned going through all of this. So that's really about kind of my first year through everything.
Great.
And then I've continued writing since then. I've been blogging pretty much this whole time. And as you can imagine, the writing's evolved, over the 11 years now. And so the second book is called Life at the Intersection of Yesterday and Tomorrow. And this one is not so much divorce or infidelity focused. It's really for people going through anything. Yeah. Because no matter what, we all have our past. And then we all have this, but I want to be here. But we're in between those. And so it's essays kind of navigating, how do you get from that past to where you want to be?
Wow. It's beautiful. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I mean, I want to get emotional at how much you've poured out of you today to my audience. If you are an audience member of mine that watch frequently, listen, I just want to tell you, find Lisa online. read her blogs. If you're going through divorce or are divorced and looking for hope, or someone that gets it, that they absolutely get it, Lisa is your woman. She is your source. I've got to have you in again soon.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
I just want to thank you for being such a source. You are, as I had in my notes, you are a coach of inspiration. So I don't think that does you justice. Inspiration is not necessarily, but you're a coach of ferocious perseverance, survival, and hope. And I just want to thank you for joining me today. You've blessed me. I know you're going to bless people all over the world. So thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I'm honored.